is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, December 5th, 2025. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams. Leading off with the weather. Today, cold with some sun. High of 30 and a low of 26. We'll see about that. It was 11 when I was on my way here this morning.
Oh, it was 13 when I came in.
Afternoon snow showers tomorrow with a high of 33, above freezing, and a low of 25. Sunday, cloudy, cold, and afternoon snow, high of 29 and a low of 13. Monday, sun and clouds, very cold, a high of 22 and a low of 13. Tuesday, snow, mainly later, and a high of 32 and a low of 27. Wednesday, snow and sleet with a high of 35 and a low of 26. And Thursday, turning cloudy. I don't know how it's turning cloudy when it's been cloudy for a couple days, but there you have it, high of 31 and a low of 21.
Must be different clouds.
So somewhere, give or take, a little close to freezing most of the week except for Monday.
Yeah, looks like we're
high
getting
temperature through 3 p.m. yesterday, 30 degrees. And the low is 22. Averages are 41 and 29. And the record high, 70 degrees in 1941. Record low, -2 in 1966. Last year's high and low were 34 and 26. So we're going to be right around there, same place as last year. The sun rose today at 7:31 and will set at 4:41. We still have another few weeks of shrinking daylight time period, don't we?
Yeah.
Total possible sunshine today, 9 hours and 10 minutes. And as I look out our studio window, it's nice and blue out
sunny,
there.
Deceptively sunny.
We'll see if the
freezing.
We'll see if the sun can get rid of some of the packed snow on my sidewalk. I spend all summer trying to persuade the kids not to walk across the lawn. Now, I would love it if they'd use the lawn instead of packing down the snow on the sidewalk before I get a chance to shovel it, but that's life.
Yeah.
Brownsville, Texas had the high for the 48 contiguous states. Yesterday, it's 85 degrees in Brownsville, Texas. In Eveleth, Minnesota, a new one on my list, -21. So it's
it ain't as bad here as it is there.
Going to be chilly in Minnesota just most times or most days this time of year. International Falls wins the prize many times. Well, that's the weather. What's on the front page?
How about the trivia question?
Oh, goodness. I nearly forgot the trivia
that.
question. This is really trivial.
Yes.
Sorry. A 25-inch snowfall on New York City would weigh how much? 100 million tons.
Which would not be the same as that much snow in Buffalo because we're a little bit smaller, but on to the front page, the FBI review of Gendron's post shows depth of attack planning, and this is from Patrick Lecomte. Federal prosecutors called the depth and scope of Peyton Gendron's plans for his racist attack that killed 10 people at a top supermarket in May of 2022 difficult to articulate. In a newly unsealed court filing, government lawyers said the FBI spent 3 months analyzing more than 1 million lines of Gendron's posts and chats on the messaging app Discord. Investigators discovered detailed plans that sometimes read like ominous product reviews, but all pointed toward the goal of unleashing hate-fueled violence at black people, his perceived enemies. Gendron listed prices and specifications for hundreds of pieces of equipment and accessories, ranking products by brand and quality and describing the pros and cons of nearly every item. For example, Gendron wrote, "Gunshots are allowed, especially indoors." So he described the benefits of hearing protection made of different materials, ranking 13 options from low-end to better options. Gendron also wrote about what shirt he would wear during his attack, noting that a combat shirt works much better than a standard shirt I was going to use. Changed that in manifesto. He added a reminder to tuck combat shirt into pants, according to his iCloud material that agents reviewed. The time federal agents spent poring over his Discord account, as well as information seized from his laptop computer, 2 thumb drives, and iPhone, has emerged as an issue as Gendron's defense lawyers seek to suppress evidence. The defense wants Discord, iPhone, laptop, home phone, cell phone, and other electronic media evidence suppressed, citing Gendron's Fourth Amendment protection from unreasonable searches and seizures and overbroad warrants. How U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo eventually rules on suppression is important because much of the evidence was obtained through search warrants. Defense lawyers describe one warrant as an unconstrained rummaging through the entire content of his Discord account, according to the suppression motion. What's more, Gendron's lawyers say federal agents extracted additional content from the Discord account in August of 2022 without getting an additional warrant after an FBI agent completed his review of the data. Prosecutors, however, say the defense argument is incorrect and based on a faulty assumption that the FBI completed its Discord review by May 31st of 2022. The FBI review began on May 18th and continued until August 19th of 2022, according to the prosecutor's filing. Because the FBI search of the Discord records was in progress through August, a continuing review did not constitute a second search that required a new search warrant, prosecutors say. Considering the size of the Discord production and the pace and sheer scale of this investigation, the FBI's 3-month review of Discord records is more than reasonable within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment, according to the prosecution filing. Discord produced 40.3 gigabytes of records from the Gendron's personal server and several other servers and channel conversations. 1 gigabyte of data is equal to 250 10-megapixel photos, 50,000 average emails with no attachments, or 353 one-minute videos. In a statement from the company a week after the mass shootings, Discord said Gendron kept a personal diary of his plans within a private Discord server, which was visible only to him. It was not visible or accessible to other Discord users prior to May 14th of 2022. During the 30 minutes leading up to the attack, Gendron invited others to view his private server with this personal diary, but it was not accessible to the broader Discord community. 15 users clicked on the invitation. The court filing unsealed this week contained more information about his Discord posts. Shortly before the Tops massacre that began at 2:30 p.m. on May 14th, Gendron sent 13 messages to about 65 Discord users and messages by 2 Discord servers between 2:03 p.m. and 2:14 p.m., according to the filing. Happening, this is not a drill, Gendron wrote. The Discord messages he sent listed several links to the live streams of the attack on Discord and Twitch, copies of his Discord transcripts, and an invitation to join his server. Gendron chronicled developments, preparations, and progress of his plan to kill black shoppers at Topson Post between November of 2021 and May of 2022, according to the filing. The first Discord transcript consisted of 586 pages of written content and images between November 28, 2021 and April 25, 2022. A second transcript consisting of 83 pages covered the period between April 29th and May 12th of 2022. Prosecutors argue the probable cause to seize evidence from his online accounts was obvious. He described in exhaustive detail his research, motivation, practice, and planning for the attacks, prosecutors said. Gendron, wearing body armor, used a rifle to murder 10 black shoppers and try to kill others using a GoPro camera to live stream the attack over the internet. Evidence seized from his Broome County home included a hand-drawn map of Tops, a letter he left for his family in which he stated that I had to commit this attack because I care for the future of the white race, and a note in which the defendant appeared to describe a top security guard and wrote security /Glock on the left top, spelling incorrect, and cameras outside not facing me. Gendron's mother told agents on May 14th of 2022 that her son had told her that he was writing a book and that he wrote in his room and at school, and that part of the book was about ballistics and body armor, according to the prosecution filing. A federal grand jury returned a 27-count indictment against Gendron, including 10 counts of committing hate crimes that resulted in death. The U.S. Justice Department announced in January of 2024 that it will seek the death penalty. Gendron probably already has been sentenced in Erie County judge to life in prison without parole on his guilty pleas to 10 state charges of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree attempted murder, among other charges. Gendron's lawyer has said he would plead guilty to the federal charges if prosecutors stopped pursuing the death penalty. Prosecutors and defense attorneys argued over the suppression motions at a court proceeding in September. Prosecutors submitted their filing in court on July 31st, but redacted version became publicly available only this week. It is difficult to underscore the substantial social costs of suppression in this case, prosecutors said in the filing. At trial, there will be no serious question that the defendant executed 10 innocent people. His intent, motive, and moral culpability for those murders will be fundamental to decisions a jury will be asked to make. Much of the evidence relevant to those decisions was obtained through search warrants. Wow.
Meanwhile, Dan Herbeck reports that more than 32 years after the disappearance of North Tonawanda High School student Mandy Steingasser, a state appeals court has affirmed the conviction of a classmate of murdering her. Niagara County prosecutors had, quoting here, legally sufficient evidence to convict Joseph H. Belstadt, now 50, of the murder of 17-year-old Steingasser, a panel of appeals court judges in Rochester ruled last month. Belstadt, who went to school with Steingasser, was arrested by North Tonawanda police more than 2 decades after the September 1993 murder. He was convicted of murder after a hard-fought jury trial in November 2021. I have prayed every night for this news. I'm gratified, retired North Tonawanda Defective Chief Gabriel DiBernardo told the Buffalo News after the appeals decision. I drove over to Mandy's house and told her mother about it, and she is very thankful that the ordeal is over. But the legal fight is not over, Belstadt's attorney, Thomas J. Ioano, said yesterday afternoon. I reviewed 5,200 pages of court transcripts on this case, and in my opinion, the evidence was thin, Ioano said. We plan to appeal to the state's highest court. The fact that it took authorities more than 24 years to charge Belstadt indicates to me that there were some doubts about the evidence, Ioano added. Niagara County District Attorney Brian Seaman disagreed with Ioano's claim that the evidence in the case was thin. There were a lot of different elements that the jury had to consider, including forensic and DNA evidence, but when you put it all together, it became a very compelling case, Seaman said. Police said Belstadt was suspected of killing Steingasser from the start of the investigation, but he was not charged in the case until 24 years after the murder. In 2 interviews with the news, Belstadt swore that he had been wrongly accused by police. After a night of partying with friends, Steingasser was seen getting into Belstadt's car around 1:20 a.m. on September 20th, 1993. Her body was found 5 weeks later in Bond Lake Park. Bond Lake Park in Lewiston. Belstadt was seen washing his car inside and out at a car wash around 2:30 that morning, detectives said. Police said they found hair fibers from Steingasser in Belstadt's car. Defense attorneys argued during the trial that the hair fiber evidence was inconclusive. DiBernardo credited North Tonawanda detectives for never giving up on the case and also credited former Niagara County District Attorney Caroline Wojtaszek, now a Niagara County judge, for aggressively pursuing the murder as a cold case after other district attorneys had declined to prosecute. We always knew we had the right man, but other prosecutors would not listen to us, DiBernardo said this week. Seaman argued the appeals case in late October against Ioano. Belstadt is serving a 25 years to life sentence in Attica State Correctional Facility. And it shows a picture of a very attractive young 17-year-old Mandy Steingasser when she was a senior. She disappeared after a night of partying with friends.
Yeah.
Sad story, however, it turns out.
Well, from Deidre Williams, Eden police arrest woman who reported truck was stolen. A woman reported her pickup truck was stolen from outside a bar, but authorities eventually discovered the story wasn't as straightforward as they were first led to believe, according to a statement from police in the town of Eden. After an investigation that lasted for months, the woman who reported the supposed theft was charged with the crime. Patricia Kessel, 50, of the town of Boston, was arrested last week and charged with making punishable false written statement. The charge is a Class A misdemeanor with a maximum jail sentence of a year in jail. And the case dates back to June 25th of this year when the driver of a Dodge Ram TRX pickup truck led Hamburg police on a chase through several towns, including Eden. The police stopped the chase because of public safety concerns, but the truck turned up not long after. It had crashed and rolled over in Buffalo, police said. 2 male passengers were picked up by police and charged in the town of Hamburg. Later that same day, Kessel reported her truck had been stolen, the same Dodge 2022 Dodge Ram, and Kessel didn't know exactly when it was taken, but she said it was stolen from a parking space outside a bar on North Main Street in Eden. After a long investigation for which Eden police say they enlisted the help of the Erie County District Attorney's Office, investigators found out that Kessel was not only an acquaintance of the people who had driven and wrecked her truck, she had also given them permission to drive it and was in constant text communication with one of the 2 males in the pickup, both before and during the police chase, investigators said. A video of the police chase was shared on social media, which showed the pickup as it passed the same bar on North Main Street from where Kessel had reported the truck stolen. A message left with Kessel on Wednesday was not returned. Eden's police chief was unavailable for comment Wednesday afternoon. Kessel is scheduled to appear in Eden Town Court next month to answer the charges against her. Strange.
I'm sure there was a point to reporting it stolen, but I can't imagine. Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service at 17 minutes past the hour. It's time to turn to the editorial page, and our main editorial from the local editorial writers is entitled Those Who Give. It's in 2 parts. First, celebrating the generosity of Western New Yorkers. Buffalo Bills fans may remember when the team beat the Seattle Seahawks on November 8th, 2020. That game was special in more ways than quarterback Josh Allen's 4 touchdowns. It was special because it was after that game that fans discovered that Allen's 80-year-old grandmother, Patricia, had died the day before the game. The revelation of a beloved grandmother dying, something so many fans could relate to, hit hard. Fans started donating in $17 increments to Patricia Allen's namesake foundation to benefit Oishei Children's Hospital in Buffalo, giving more than $1 million to the hospital. Shortly after, the hospital announced it would name a wing on its sport-themed 10th floor, the Patricia Allen Pediatric Recovery Wing. 5 years and around $15.7 million later, these donations to the only standalone children's hospital in the state are going strong. As news columnist Mike Petro wrote in a wide-ranging article about how the fund and its mission have grown and benefited children who now have access to special equipment, such as the ECMO heart and lung bypass machine that saved the life of Carson Clauser. The donations haven't only come from Bills fans, even rivals have given, including Kansas City Chiefs fans who donated after beating the Bills in the playoffs. Help has also come from local philanthropic businesses like Westher Automotive Group, which provided $2 million to the fund in 2022. Fisher-Price, New Era Cap, Tops Markets, Wegmans, and Crosby's have also contributed. Add in Allen's sponsors, the MVP quarterback has become one of NFL's most marketable brand pitchmen. And don't forget the global community of fans he has racked up. Allen's commitment to community was already evident in his work with the hospital prior to the fund. Donors understand how vital it is to give in whatever amount. $17 is fine, and many do it monthly. This is a story about heart and love for children. Go Bills.
I like that story. I have family members who spent quite a bit of time in children's. That's really heartwarming. And the Love Machine. It's this season to talk about giving, and here's a unique example. The Connor J. Casey Foundation's Feed the Need initiative has announced the launch of the Love Machine, an innovative donation-based vending machine that makes it easy for Western New Yorkers to support organizations that are feeding and serving their communities. The project honors the life and legacy of Connor J. Casey, the founding chef of Cocoa Bar and Bistro. Casey died from glioblastoma in June of 2022 at the age of 34. In his honor, his family and the community created the Connor J. Casey Foundation. The mission is to remember Connor by how he lived, sharing good food, compassion, and community. The way the machine works is pretty cool. The Love Machine operates like a traditional snack vending machine, stated Maura Crawford, program director of Feed the Need. The vending machine dispenses donation tiles, each representing one of 24 Western New York nonprofits. Those wishing to give through this fun touch screen device can select one or more multiple tiles and complete their purchases with a credit card or Apple Pay. Each nonprofit sets a donation amount of their own tile based on their specific needs. We decided to launch the Love Machine at this time of year as it provides shoppers with great options for gifts or stocking stuffers that also help our community, Crawford said. The Love Machine will rotate throughout Western New York, traveling from Olean to Ellicottville and through Buffalo and the suburbs. It will be a Kleinhans Music Hall during the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra's Holiday Pops concert series from December 18th to 21st. The Village of Ellicottville will host the machine during Christmas week, December 23rd to 31st. A continually updated schedule is available on Feed the Need 716 Instagram page.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, we have a couple of political cartoons to read. One from Adam Ziglis, the local cartoonist, who has a picture of a Trump insults advent calendar.
Oh, geez.
Has several of the doors already open. The first one is garbage. That's Somali people. You're a stupid person. That's addressed to a female reporter. Seriously? And there's more to it. I didn't bother looking that up, but I read about it a few days ago.
Yeah, it's a mentally ill
that's addressed to Governor Tim Walz. And Quiet Piggy, addressed to a female reporter. And in the corner of the Advent calendar, it says, "The gift that keeps on giving, you heartburn."
Yeah.
And another frequent columnist, a cartoonist that we see here in the news from the Creator Syndicate, Michael Ramirez, has a bunch of people in a laboratory, one of them looking at a microscope, saying it's the most dangerous pathogen we have come across. And someone asks, bubonic plague? Smallpox? And someone else answers, misinformation and conspiracy theories. Dangerous pathogens those are.
From Abby McCloskey, we have an article. More affordable holidays are a pen swipe away. The Trump administration was voted in to turn price hikes around and make things more affordable. It's time to try harder. The last 6 weeks of the year are critical for the U.S. economy. Retailers traditionally reap their highest sales figures, create seasonal employment, and see a boost in profits. It's also, of course, a crucial time for Americans hoping to buy holiday gifts and maybe snag a little something for themselves. But retailers aren't offering as many seasonal jobs this year. The forecast for holiday spending is mixed and prices remain stubbornly high. Ornaments that previously would have been stocking stuffers were over my threshold. It's the same sticker shock I'd come to expect at the grocery store, especially when stocking up to feed extended family. In parentheses, she says, friend to friend, if you are going to save yourself some work and buy store-bought Christmas cookies this year, the cost of pre-made baked goods is up too, so pull down the flour. Free marketeers aren't usually the life of the party, and I say this with love, but their absence will be felt this December. It seems we're stuck between a protectionist regime on the political right and resurgent socialist energy on the political left. Not good news for consumers.
Members of the Trump administration have pointed to data to refute the bad economic vibes. To some extent, they are right. There's been savings from a reduction in inflation relative to the runaway Biden era. Real incomes are up nearly 1% year over year, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, certain things like gasoline and interest rates, and thus mortgage rates, are down. And we mustn't forget the tax relief passed as part of the reconciliation package. On the other hand, that tax relief won't be felt until April 2026, way after holiday presents are bought and paid for. Although price increases are indeed lower than during the Biden era, prices themselves remain elevated and some are rising. Interest rates still feel high to an electorate accustomed to the historically low levels of the 2010s. Affordability is a bipartisan concern. Trump is 39 points underwater on the cost of living, according to a recent Reuters Ipsos poll. Anxiety about inflation is top of mind for voters all across America, in college towns and evangelical communities, in rural areas and big cities, and among white, Hispanic, and black counties. Some in the White House say prices are only elevated because we're coming off the Biden-era bender. By this logic, they just need more time to see things right. But just as during the Biden administration, the rise in prices under the Trump administration is an unforced economic error. Don't take my word for it. They are admitting it themselves, albeit quietly. What we are seeing is two sides of the same coin. Recall, inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. Although many countries experienced unavoidable pandemic-era inflation from supply chain backups, the Biden administration added to the problem in the U.S. by passing massive stimulus packages after the economy had largely stabilized. A demand-side error. The Trump administration's rise in certain prices is also an unforced error, simply in reverse, by introducing massive tariffs and workplace raids and limiting the flow of labor and goods. A supply-side error. Realizing their political liability, the Trump administration has lowered tariffs on household items such as coffee, bananas, beef, and tomatoes. This is a good start. If prices fall, it will be because of rollbacks like these and more of them. All it takes is a slice of humble pie. Surely there are Thanksgiving leftovers and the swipe of a pen. But we're not there yet. This holiday season, many American small businesses and consumers remained hard hit. For them, tariffs feel personal. My siblings run an online store selling rugs part-time while raising lots of kids. Turns out Turkish rugs aren't made in the U.S. They are taking home less profit just in time for Christmas.
I have a friend who runs a successful clothing store that relies heavily on foreign imports. During the 2024 presidential campaign, this friend was a big Trump booster, mostly excited about the Make America Healthy Again movement. She even had a keychain on her purse that was what can be best described as a Trump troll, a plastic body with fuzzy long hair. I was recently with her, and her business has taken a hit, and they are letting someone go and canceling year-end bonuses. So much for the funny keychain. I recently ordered something from Etsy. I was surprised to find that the item wouldn't be delivered until I wrote an additional $32 check to the U.S. Postal Service for the tariff amount, which will go straight from my pockets into Uncle Sam's coffers. At first, I thought it was a scam until I paid and my item was promptly delivered. Try to tell me that a tariff is not a tax. Here is the problem with so-called affordability. The Trump administration says we're better for prices than the Democrats. The Democrats say we're better for prices than the GOP. Each side has some good ideas and some bad ones. And around we go. We have to stop and get the fundamental rights, stop being our own worst enemies. This includes, but is not limited to, the tax and regulatory restraint, reducing the deficit, free and fair trade, and independent Federal Reserve predictable policy. If Santa is listening, can you drop economics textbooks down a few chimneys in Washington, D.C.?
Mm-hmm. Those are the opinions of Abby McCluskey, who writes for the Bloomberg Opinion. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. At 29 minutes past the hour, we turn to the thoughts of some local folks. Lori Duval Jackson writes My View column today. She thinks immigration policies will hinder scientific research. A few years ago, I retired from the engineering department of a local university. While there, I helped administer the graduate program and worked with the international student population. At the time, the political climate wasn't an impactful factor in the program's administration. How times have changed. The intense focus on illegal immigration the targeting of higher education for perceived biases, and the appointment of an unqualified leader to head the Department of Health and Human Services have all combined to negatively impact the advancement of scientific research. At the university graduate level, where the majority of research is conducted, academic programs combine classroom instruction with intensive laboratory research to produce biomedical advances and other scientific accomplishments that have greatly benefited our society. This process begins with the recruitment of undergraduates who wish to continue their education. Most domestic students, as American students, opt to hit the job market after graduation, where a four-year engineering degree provides a pathway to high-earning positions. That leaves a gaping hole in the graduate student population that is filled by international students. Without them, the ability to adequately staff research labs would be severely hindered. My job involved the admission process for prospective graduate students who face significant hurdles. Verifiable financial documentation is required, proving their ability to pay tuition and living expenses at predetermined levels. They must pass tests demonstrating English language proficiency. If admitted, they have to schedule and attend interviews at a U.S. consulate in their home countries to obtain legal visas permitting them to study, travel, and live in the United States. A visa is not issued until the student has been thoroughly vetted. The current immigration debate shouldn't impact this process, but it does. I've heard that getting a consular appointment has become difficult, the interview process drawn out, and even those approved for visas may not receive them in time to start their semesters. These factors, coupled with current immigration actions, have resulted in a substantial decline of foreign students, even though they would be here legally. Funding is the other pole holding up the university research tent. For decades, the government has provided support for research projects. This process begins with faculty professors writing and submitting proposals. Only a small percentage, 10 to 20%, are approved for funding, and now proposals are scrutinized to ensure they comply with new diversity standards. Funding already approved has been suspended or canceled. The new Secretary for Health and Human Services has declared a distrust of scientific methodologies. Since his position includes oversight of the National Institutes of Health, this doesn't bode well for current and future scientific research. Cures for certain cancers, the reduction of infectious disease, the invention of surgical techniques that reduce or eliminate hospital stays, these scientific advances were made possible by a system that is now imperiled, and we should all be concerned. Lori Duval Jackson shares those thoughts with us.
More to worry about. From Beth Finkel, who is a state director for the AARP in New York. Another voice is about support services. Family caregivers need and deserve support. At some point in nearly everyone's life, they will care for a family member who has a chronic illness or condition, an injury, or becomes frail as they age. The impact is especially felt across Western New York. Nearly half of voters aged 40 or older in the region have served as family caregivers, according to the AARP research. They often provide care while working full or part-time jobs. Many caregivers must reduce their hours or quit their jobs entirely to make sure their loved ones get the care they need. It is estimated that caregivers spend about $7,200 of their own dollars to provide care. Unsurprisingly, 74% of caregivers report they feel stressed or exhausted from balancing their responsibilities. And now is the time to act and give caregivers the relief and support that they need and deserve. Family caregivers are helping their loved ones live independently at home and in their communities where they want to be. They are the backbone of our long-term care system, providing $39 billion in unpaid care each year in our state. Without family caregivers, many older New Yorkers would be forced into costly nursing homes with taxpayers footing the bill. AARP New York fights to ensure home and community-based services that support family caregivers and their aging loved ones, such as respite care and transportation services, are available to all who seek them. Mindful of today's economic realities, we will work to protect all the progress the state has made in addressing unmet need for these services in recent years, including the record $45 million in additional unmet needed funding, including in the most recent state budget by Governor Kathy Hochul and state lawmakers. Additionally, funding must keep pace with the rising costs of delivering home services. At the federal level, WARP is pushing for financial relief for caregivers through the Credit for Caring Act, a proposed federal tax credit of up to $5,000 for working caregivers, and the Lowering Costs for Caregivers Act, which would expand flexible spending and health savings account uses. Caregiving is at once the best of jobs and the most taxing of jobs. No one should have to choose between caring for a loved one and supporting themselves. Ensuring we care for our caregivers is a smart investment for all New Yorkers. And again, that's from Beth Finkel, the state director for the WARP of New York.
Turning to Buffalo next. Some finance news. Shoppers use discounts and credit to buy holiday gifts. This is from Emmett Lindner of the New York Times. American consumers are spending more this holiday season as retailers lure them with bargains. The search for bigger discounts isn't just seasonal, though. A record 203 million consumers shopped during the Thanksgiving weekend, according to the National Retail Federation. More than $44 billion was spent online from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday, up about 8% from last year, data from Adobe Analytics showed. But shoppers struggling with inflation and economic uncertainty have sought out sales and turned to coupon finders and cashback services throughout the year. Feeling stretched by the ripple effects of tariffs and high interest rates, people are stacking discounts and using buy now, pay later at checkout, too. Consumers have faced several years of rising costs, and what we're seeing now is resilience turning into strategy, said Magali Darling, Chief Commercial Officer at Retail Me Not, a company that offers discount coupons and cashback options on some purchases. It's a long-term shift in how consumers approach spending, with a stronger focus on making every dollar work harder. At Retail Me Not, account registrations this year through November jumped 22% from the same period in 2024. Buy now, pay later use has also spiked. Just Monday, the payment method drove more than $1 billion in online spending, according to Adobe Analytics. The National Retail Federation predicted that retail sales in November and December would exceed $1 trillion for the first time. But that total masks a growing divide in how Americans buy. High-income shoppers are increasing spending at more expensive stores, while middle-income households are returning to value brands. Everything's more expensive, Jill Paulison, age 67, said as she made her way into a Kohl's in Branford, Connecticut. She said she usually shopped at the store when there were sales and took advantage of Kohl's Cash, a rewards system. She also frequents TJ Maxx and Marshall's for low-priced items. I'm buying less this year, but I'm looking for more sales, Paulison said. I plan to buy less for family and friends. Visits to other value retailers like Burlington Stores, Ross Dress for Less, and Walmart have increased this year, according to data from Placer AI, a company that analyzes foot traffic at stores. For lower-income households, there's only so much trading down they can do, but using different discounts or sales, that's shifting the timing of some spending, said Ryan Sweet, chief U.S. economist at Oxford Economics. But the bulk of consumption is done by everyone in between, and that's an enormous number of people, he added. That's where you're going to see the most trading down occurring. In recent earnings calls, several retailers noted that lower prices were driving business and enticing new customers. Walmart said increased earnings had stemmed in part from the shift toward value items. TJ Maxx said its lower prices were distinguishing it from competitors. At the same time, retailers selling discretionary or luxury items such as Best Buy and Williams-Sonoma have increased revenue in recent quarters, suggesting that some consumers will still splurge on big-ticket gifts. Macy's on Wednesday reported better-than-expected sales across its inventory, from discounted items to luxury goods. Klarna, a company that splits payments up over time at variable interest rates, saw a 32% rise in users in the 3 months through September compared with the same period in 2024.
And from Mark Kennedy, the Associated Press, Sony's PlayStation celebrates 30 years. When Kendrick Lamar began his Super Bowl halftime show earlier this year, he picked a stage design likely familiar to anyone tuning in, a square, triangle, cross, and circle. The Grammy-winning rapper, in front of more than 133 million people, chose to perform on a massive industrialized grid of flashing lights resembling a giant PlayStation controller. It was a nice surprise for Sony's PlayStation, which this year is celebrating its 38th anniversary in North America and Europe. From big-budget Hollywood fare like Lara Croft Tomb Raider, starring Angelina Jolie, to Juice WRLD's video for Hear Me Calling, to The Last of Us on HBO Max, the PlayStation experience has leaped far beyond the console. We made gaming cool. When we came out, we were a little edgy, we were different, but it was really about being disruptive, said Eric Lempel, Senior Vice President of Business and Product at Sony Interactive Entertainment. Part of the enduring popularity of the PlayStation has been its ability to evolve with the technology, starting in 1995 by picking CD-ROMs that opened the door to 3D gaming. At the time, clunky cartridges were king. The PlayStation, sparked by a failed partnership between Nintendo and Sony, entered a marketplace dominated by Sega and Nintendo. Sony wanted to bring the arcade experience home, and the crucial decision was to consult with game developers first before building their system. Some critical steps helped right from the launch. Sony had a number of games ready to go, a development pipeline in place, and killer retail prices. $299, it was less expensive than the rival Sega Saturn. Sony also picked its market carefully, Caulfield said. With Sega and Nintendo largely targeting children, Sony was aiming the PlayStation at teens and young adults, catnip for their younger brothers and sisters. When the console first arrived, it was a sensation, going on to sell more than 100 million units globally. It's when games grew up, said Caulfield. It's when the gaming went from the bedroom to the living room. Sony kept up with the technology, packing a DVD into the PlayStation 2 so the buyers had another reason to buy the system. Sony hit a wobble with the PS3, which used a Blu-ray deck. It made the thing so expensive, and it kind of broke that original PlayStation feeling of availability and a great value for the money, Caulfield said. But the PlayStation 4 in 2013 stabilized the console, offering immersive online multiple player options, streaming services, and a library of exclusive games. Sony kept going with in-app purchases, 4,000 resolution and 4K resolution, and a controller that has haptic feedback and adaptive triggers in the current PlayStation 5.
Never actually had a PlayStation controller in my hands.
I have not either, but I know a lot of kids that like them.
40-some years ago, we had an Atari game at my house. Every time we bought a new cartridge, my older son, who was 8 or so at the time, he would grab the cartridge and I would grab the instruction manual, and by the time I finished looking at the instruction manual, he had mastered the game and there was no hope that I'd ever beat him. That was that. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Just a few names here. Bernadine Haas of, Amherst. She died just a couple of days ago at, 93 years old, 97 years old. Carl Hubers of Chili in New York, age 47, died on the 2nd of December. And Helen W., nee Bressler, beloved wife of James Ronan, and she was from Buffalo. I'm not sure I read that one name correctly. We'll try it again. Hubers Carl G. III. He was from Chili and died at age 47. Again, if you need any further information on any of these names that I just bumbled through, call us at 716-821-5555. Now, we have a couple of editorials, obituaries of some note. Steve Cropper, age 84. You may never have heard of him, but he was the prodigious guitarist, songwriter, and producer who played a pivotal role in shaping the lean soul music made at Memphis Stax Records in the 1960s and 70s. He died Wednesday in Nashville, Tennessee. His death at a rehab facility was confirmed by his wife, Angel Cropper, who did not specify the cause. Steve Cropper was a member of Booker T and the MGs, the house rhythm section at Stax. Cropper played the snarling Fender Telecaster lick on Green Onions, the funky hit instrumental by the MGs from 1962. He also contributed the ringing guitar figure that opened Sam and Dave's gospel-steeped Soul Man, the 1966 single on which Sam Moore shouted, "Play it, Steve," to cue Cropper's stinging single-string solo on the chorus. Both records were top 10 hits and reached number 1 on the R&B chart. Cropper had an innate feel for groove as well as a penchant for feeling over flash, gifts evident in his bell-toned guitar work on the Otis Redding's Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay. In 2015, he was ranked 39th on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. That was in 2015. Back in 1996, Britain's Mojo magazine slotted him second behind only Jimi Hendrix on a similar list of guitarists. I think that kind of shows you how the perception of musicians changed
and now
over
I know,
that,
and now I
20
know.
years.
Yeah, I recognize all those riffs.
Exactly. Cropper was also a prolific songwriter. His credits, typically as a co-writer, include the epic-defining likes of Dock of the Bay, Wilson Pickett's In the Midnight Hour, and Eddie Floyd's Knock on Wood. All three were number 1 rhythm and blues singles. Redding's record topped the pop chart as well and won Grammy Awards for Best R&B Song and Best Male R&B Vocal Performance in 1969. Cropper achieved further acclaim in the late 70s for his work with the Blues Brothers, the musical side project of Saturday Night Live co-stars John Belushi and John Aykroyd. Booker T and the MGs, including Steve Cropper, were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1992. Cruisin', a track from their 1994 reunion album, That's the Way It Should Be, won a Grammy for Best Pop Instrumental Performance. He was elected to the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2005. Cropper's first marriage to Betty Grooms ended in divorce, and then in 1988, he married Angel Hightower. In addition to his wife, he is survived by 2 children from his first marriage, Stephen and Ashley Cropper, and 2 children from his second marriage, Cameron Cropper and Andrea Cropper Register.
Now I'm hearing those songs playing in my head.
Well, I played a couple of them earlier while we were getting ready for the broadcast. Richard Goldstein of the New York Times reports that Eugene Hassenfuss, who's a 45-year-old former Marine and laid-off construction worker, thrust into the national spotlight in 1986 when, on a covert mission sponsored by the CIA, his gun-running cargo plane was shot down over Nicaragua, setting off what would become as the Iran-Contra affair. He died on November 26th at his home in Menominee, Michigan. He was 84. His death was confirmed in an obituary provided by his family to the Hanson Onion Martell Funeral Home in nearby Marinette, Wisconsin, where Hassenfuss was born. He had been treated for cancer for 9 years, his family said. Hassenfuss emerged out of obscurity on October 5th, 1986, when a missile fired by troops fighting for Nicaragua's leftist government downed his plane while it was on a run to drop arms to right-wing rebel forces known as Contras, who were seeking to overthrow the country's leaders. The pilot, co-pilot, and radio operator of the plane, a twin-engine turboprop of 1950s vintage, died in its fiery crash in a patch of jungle in southern Nicaragua. Hassenfuss, who has been responsible for packing and dropping the arms, was the lone survivor. An experienced skydiver and the only crew member with a parachute, he had leaped from the cargo compartment, which had been blasted open by the missile, as the aircraft began plummeting to Earth. Government troops captured him a day later, finding him unhurt and protected from an overnight rain under a makeshift tent that he had fashioned out of his parachute. In a 1991 documentary, the Eugene Hassenfuss story, produced by Wisconsin Public Television, Hassenfuss spoke of his pride in his military service and of his role in funneling aid to the Contras. He felt that he had been betrayed. He said he had felt betrayed by the U.S. government for not revealing the truth behind the Contra supply flights when he went on trial. We were a forgotten group as of October 5th, he said, reflecting on the day his cargo plane was shot down. it wasn't like I was there. They didn't want to know me. They wished I was dead. Eugene Hessenfuss, dead at 84.
Well, now we move on to a bit of entertainment with the Royal Stars from Georgia Nichols. Happy birthday for Friday, December 5th of 2025. You're physically energetic, enthusiastic, and resourceful. You're captivated by pioneering possibilities. This year you will reap the benefits of your past hard work, and the stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. We've got kind of a mix over here today. Aries is 3 stars. Today has its challenges because the moon is at odds with your ruler, Mars, and stern Saturn. You'll be best off if you practice patience when it comes to talking to others tonight. Cocoon. Taurus, that's 3 stars. You keep track of your money because you like money. Many of you work in banks. Avoid arguments about money, loans, and shared property today, which might pop up. And tonight, conversations. Gemini is 2 stars. Today we'll test your patience because the moon is in your sign at odds with fiery Mars and a stern Saturn. You might feel a bit depressed or lonely, and tonight, check your belongings. Cancer is 2 stars. You're a sensitive sign, and today you might feel lonely or people might seem cold. Work colleagues might be insensitive, and tonight you win. That's interesting. Leo, 3 stars. You're usually confident in your people skills, but today, no matter what you do, it seems like you've lost your Midas touch. Tonight, enjoy privacy. Virgo is 3 stars. This is a tricky day because you are high vis, and it's important to know people are noticing you more for whatever reason, and tonight, be friendly. Libra is 3 stars. You're a people pleaser, and you don't like to rock the boat. This is one reason you might find today to be challenging. Tonight, you're noticed. Scorpio is 2 stars. This is a poor day for important financial discussions. You are not up to the task. Relations with others might be strained. Tonight, explore. Sagittarius, 2 stars. Today, you have to go more than halfway when dealing with others. It's a simple matter of compromise. Don't demand too much. Tonight, check your finances. Capricorn, 3 stars. Relations with coworkers might disappoint you today. Something makes you feel a bit unloved or cut off. Don't worry. Tonight, cooperate. Aquarius, 3 stars. Relations with your kids might seem strained today. They might feel misunderstood, or perhaps you do. Likewise, romance is a bit touchy and disappointing. Tonight, work. And Pisces, 2 stars. Be patient with family members today because everyone feels the strain of today's vibes. You also might be disappointed or even angry with authority figure. Tonight, socialize. Sounds like today's horoscope is telling everybody to just stay in bed.
Everybody.
Yeah, maybe when I go home I'll do just that. Well, in history today, let's see if they have some interesting stuff here. In 1848, an address to Congress, President James K. Polk sparked the gold rush in 1949 by confirming that gold had been discovered in California. In 1933, Prohibition law came to an end as Utah became the 36th state to ratify the 21st Amendment to the Constitution, repealing the 18th Amendment. In 1952, the Great Smog of London descended on the British capital in the unusually thick fog which contained toxic pollutants. Lasted 5 days and was blamed for causing thousands of deaths. In 1955, the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations merged to form the AFL-CIO under its first president, George Meany, and in 1994, Republicans chose Newt Gingrich to be the first GOP Speaker of the House in 4 decades. In 2008, O.J. Simpson was sentenced to up to 33 years in prison after being convicted of 12 criminal charges in connection with the 2007 confrontation with sports memorabilia dealers in Los Angeles hotel, and in 2009, a jury in Perugia, Italy. A convicted American student Amanda Knox and her Italian ex-boyfriend Raphael Solicito of murdering Knox's British roommate Meredith Kircher and sentenced them to long-term prisons, but after a series of back-and-forth rulings, Knox and Solicito were definitely acquitted in 2015.
Well, I'm going to take a couple of moments, not wanting to comment about the Buffalo News editorial policies or whatever. But they stopped publishing a print edition of the paper on Mondays. They announced that in October, and that ceased. That Monday print edition ceased the beginning of November. I noticed in the Monday paper, I get it online, take a bit of a look at it. And we've been reporting from the reporter's notebook at this point in our broadcast on Fridays, with typically someone of fame and a quote from them. Then there's a bunch of various civic activities going on, many of them of a charitable nature, and then a list of birthdays. And the Friday one always had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday birthdays. The Monday one had Monday and Tuesdays, and the Wednesday one had Wednesday and Thursday birthdays. Well, in November, they were publishing the entire reporter's notebook for the week, which meant you only got one quote from a person of note, and a bunch of civic activities and birthdays for the week. I managed to compile what we would normally have been reporting on Fridays from the Monday paper, brought it into the studio with me, and we were able to use that. This week, there's nothing in Monday's paper in the way of reporter's notebook, and I've been attempting all week to contact the person who's in charge of that, and every day I get a response that says someone from the editorial will be with you shortly, and 20 seconds later, it's the person you're trying to reach is not available. Please leave a message, and I leave messages, and no one bothers to respond to them. So we don't have a reporter's notebook segment for you as much as I'd like to, because I always kind of enjoy that bit.
Yeah, I did too.
But here we are. I'll take a moment then to wrap this up with a little bit of a piece on development from Jonathan Epstein. The logistics firm is going to buy and reuse Certainteed as warehouse. Didn't take long for the vacant former Certainteed plant in South Buffalo to get a new use. Months after the new owner of Certainteed's vinyl fencing, railing, and decking division shut down the facility at Buffalo Lakeside Commerce Park, a Pennsylvania-based third-party logistics company that already has three operations in Western New York, they plan to buy it and redevelop it as another warehouse. Wavepoint 3PL, based in Northeast Pennsylvania. I've always loved the name of that town, Northeast Pennsylvania. It's in the northwest corner of Pennsylvania.
Did you notice that?
Just over the state border west of Ripley. Northeast is two words. Has put the 279,000 square foot facility at the Ship Canal Parkway under contract for $21 million, and it intends to spend another $4 million on renovations and new equipment. The company says it will use the building to store products, manage inventory, fulfill orders, package goods, and coordinate transportation for regional manufacturers and distributors who are its clients, according to the Erie County Industrial Development Agency. At the same time, it will modernize the facility, upgrade the loading docks, and install advanced warehouse and logistics management systems. And it will create 31 full-time jobs within 2 years and 55 jobs within 5 years, paying an average of $48,000 plus per year, ranging from $40,000 to $90,000 annual salaries. Well, you're listening to a reading. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News. For today, it's December 5th on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We're going to return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Don Williams.
and J.J. Patek. Now we move on to the city and regions. 5 takeaways as legislators pass $2.28 billion budget. This is from Sandra Tan, a new staff reporter. Erie County's spending plan for next year is set. It includes a $2.28 billion operating budget, which passed Thursday on party lines. The budget is more conservative than past years, but still adds jobs and raises the property tax levy, the amount of money the county collects in property taxes, by 1.5% or $5 million. That still represents the second lowest increase in more than a dozen years. The budget includes investments in the new Willowdale Park and Golf Course in Amherst and the creation of a new real estate division that will identify and attempt to sell off unneeded county property. It invests in SUNY Erie Community College improvements, including a new sports complex in the North Campus in Amherst. It also removes a few things. Legislators amended the budget to remove the plan to spend $20 million for an engineering and design study for an expanded county jail in Alden, effectively killing the jail project for now. It also eliminates proposed increases in county parks and golf course fees. The county's property tax rate, the amount of taxes charged for every $1,000 of assessed value to property owners, is also falling again to historically low levels from $3.29 to $3.09, thanks to increasing property values and new development. County officials say they are already looking ahead to next year's budget, which they expect to be difficult. We're satisfied with the budget, said Chairman Timothy Myers, a Democrat from Cheektowaga. We'll see where we are when we get to mid-year. Nobody has a crystal ball. Here are 5 key takeaways. The political budget vibes. Unlike past years when there was more harmony, the more money to spend between the Democratic majority, Republican minority, and county executive's office, the vibe was noticeably absent this year. The budget was passed on party lines, with Democrats holding a 3-vote majority. When questioned by the Buffalo News, representatives from all sides said they made an attempt to communicate across the aisle and essentially accused the other side of not making enough of an effort. The Republican caucus put forth a budget amendment package that they said they would have to cut $12 million in expenses, including a proposed hiring freeze and lowering the tax levy, but they expected it to be voted down and didn't make a hard sell. Democrats took a cursory look at the package and decided to stick with their own, which happened to include some of the same cuts Republicans recommended. When we look at this budget, I see there's some victories here that we should be talking about, said Legislator Tyson St. John Tard, a Democrat from Buffalo. Lindsay Lorigo, Republican from West Seneca, said, "We have the opportunity this year to start offering solutions. We can't continue to kick the can down line, and that's what this budget continues to do." Then some additions. The county budget preserves all existing programs and services but reflects growth in county government jobs over the past year. The current budget includes 81 more full-time positions than last year's adopted budget. This includes 50 jobs already approved by the county legislature during the year, 14 existing positions that were either originally grant-supported or elevated from part-time to full-time, and 17 entirely new positions. The spending plan also abolishes 12 vacant full-time positions and 38 seasonal and part-time jobs. Polling Carts and Budget Director Mark Cornell pointed out that county officials and department heads requested an additional 119 positions be added to the budget, and most were denied. But jobs were added to create a new real estate division and to staff the county's new Willowdale Park and Golf Course. And then less pork. This is a sign of the county legislators' pessimism and county executive Mark Poloncart's messaging about the potential impact of potential federal funding cuts in 2027 that many Democratic legislators agreed to settle for less money to give away in their own districts. For the first time in years, the amount of money that county legislators gave to themselves for giant handouts in their own district has fallen. All legislators are still getting $150,000 in earmarks to hand out as grants in their district, organizations, and nonprofits. That's unchanged. But instead of Democrats also getting another $4.2 million in urban initiatives, money to benefit the cities of Buffalo, Lackawanna, and Tonawanda, they agreed to cut that fund in half from $4.2 million to $2.1 million. Myers also agreed to give up his share of the money, and a separate pool of money benefiting Amherst was also cut. St. John's noted that her share of urban initiative funding fell from $400,000 to $150,000, even though community organizations in her district made $2 million worth of requests. She and Lawrence Dupre, a Democrat from Buffalo, will pool their urban initiative funds together for a Jefferson Avenue streetscaping project, which will include the area fronting the Top supermarket where the May 14th of 2022 mass shooting occurred. And less Bills money. The county budget is winding down its investment in the Buffalo Bills Stadium. The county is obligated to pay about $1 million next year for the Bills-related expenses for the remainder of the current NFL season, but the last payment is slated for May. That compares with more than $7.7 million allocated in the 2025 calendar year. The new stadium will be transferred to the state for ongoing support and maintenance after the new stadium is built. The legislature also cut a $1.5 million funding request from County Attorney Jeremy Toth to reduce his stadium inspection and compliance fund used to cover the red tape-related expenses associated with government oversight of the new stadium project. That money will presumably be transferred back at a later date, as is often the case with county attorney costs, because the expense need is not going to disappear. And looking forward, many elected county leaders have referred their concerns about the 2027 budget year due to the potential impact of President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Originally, that concern was compounded by plans to begin construction of an expanded county jail facility in Alden prior to the legislature's actions to sink that plan. It's a tough year, said Comptroller Kevin Hardwick, and next year is going to be tougher. Cornell also said the year-end surplus is expected to be much smaller than normal, currently projecting to close out with less than $3 million in leftover money. Because of some huge requirement payments to Erie County Medical Center, that means that in the spring there will be less money to spread around, spend, and save when the legislature finalizes its year-end budget balancing amendments.
Yeah, they mentioned scrapping the plans to build a new jail. That's been covered rather extensively over the last couple of days. Got too expensive. That's what the legislators think. Meanwhile, Stephen Watson reports that the Williamsville School District is considering whether to pay a stipend to its school board members, a step that would make it the first suburban district in New York to do this. But the district needs to get permission from the state legislature first. Currently, only members of these so-called Big Five school districts in the state are eligible for compensation, Williamsville board members said. Buffalo school board members, for example, earn $28,000 annually, up from $15,000 in 2023. Mark Manna, the Williamsville School Board vice president who proposed the idea earlier this fall, declined to say what dollar figure he believes is appropriate. He said he envisions a stipend far lower than what Buffalo board members earn, but still meaningful enough to reward members for all they put into their roles. Would it retain board members who want to run for election and have this vast institutional knowledge for an organization that has almost 10,000 children, hundreds of employees, dozens of facilities, and a $250 million budget? And would it help recruit new people to run for the board, knowing that there's a little stipend for all the time and effort and energy that's needed? Manna said in an interview. The school board is inviting members of the district community to join a committee that will review the suggestion and make a recommendation to the full board. If the school board approves the proposal, they would then seek the support of state lawmakers to pass the necessary legislation, officials said. We're really at the very beginning of this process, board president Crystal Kazmarek-Bogner told the Buffalo News, adding that she hasn't made up her own mind yet. Manna said he started pursuing the idea after thinking about the fact that members of the Amherst Town Board, and other municipal elected boards, not to mention the Buffalo School Board, receive pay for their service. The Williamsville District is the largest in the area outside Buffalo. School board members take part in regular board meetings, committee meetings, district events, training, and other activities, which often require additional study and discussion. Manna, who served 8 years on the Amherst Town Board, said he knows the amount of work that goes into that position, too. Being a school board member is just as much work as being a council member, he said. Manna brought the idea to the board's attention at its September meeting when members agreed to seek a legal opinion on whether they had the authority to pay themselves. They do not, it turns out. The New York State School Boards Association points to opinions from the state controller that say compensation for school board members is prohibited unless specifically authorized by legislation. Reimbursement of expenses, such as travel to educational conferences, is permitted. Manna said only board members of the districts in Buffalo, New York City, Rochester, Syracuse, and Yonkers are eligible for pay. The School Boards Association said Rochester's board president earns $34,000, other Rochester members earn $26,000, and Syracuse members earn just under $16,000. The idea of expanding the pool of school board members eligible for payment has been raised in the past and hasn't won support within the ranks of the association. Our membership has consistently chosen to decline having New York State School Board Association advocate for such an allowance. So financially compensating school board members is not something we are supporting or calling for, L. Marlin, a spokesperson for the association, said in an email. Manna said he considers this line of thinking antiquated because in the end, the voters decide who sits in those seats and if they're the right person or they're running for the right reasons. The board discussed the proposal at its October and November meetings. Last month, it set up an advisory committee to offer an opinion on the idea, including a recommended pay level. 3 school board members, 3 members selected by the district's Parent-Teacher Student Association Council, and 3 members from the district community will serve on the panel. The district sent out a note seeking committee participants and posted about it on its Facebook page on Tuesday. The committee is expected to take shape this month and could hold its first meetings in January. Officials said. Manna and Kaczmarek Bogner said their work could take 2 or 3 months. Manna said he didn't want to unduly influence the work of the committee by commenting on possible compensation amounts, but he did say he envisions something far lower than the $28,000 paid to Buffalo's members or the $35,000 paid to Amherst Town Board members. Manna said he hasn't discussed the matter with Amherst state representatives. If the school board approves the measure, members would ask the state legislature to give them the required permission. We would need explicit authorization, so we need legislative approvals, Kaczmarek Bogner said. Any pay plan wouldn't take effect until the 26-27 school year at the earliest, officials said. The board's 3 student members representing the district's 3 high schools would not be eligible for compensation. Well, interesting.
And from Robert Gavin, the Albany Bureau Chief, Hochul signs bill to expand screenings for lung cancer. Governor Kathy Hochul on Thursday signed a bill into law to require health insurance to cover the cost of follow-up screening and diagnostic services for lung cancer, which killed an estimated 6,100 New Yorkers last year. In a bill signing ceremony in New York City that drew representatives of Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center in Buffalo, Hochul said the new law could be the difference between life and death for families. She divulged her family dealt with cancer screenings earlier this year. Hochul said a copay can be as little as $50 but can run up costs of hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on the situation. She said it comes amid federal budget cuts and a cavalier and depraved attitude about people's health in Washington, D.C. This is going to be a very significant day in the lives of people who find the news that they have a cancer diagnosis, especially a lung cancer diagnosis, Hochul said, because it puts on them a long journey, a lot of uncertainty, fear, and anxiety. It's really an emotional roller coaster, something my family experienced just earlier this year, so this is personal. Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes, a Democrat from Buffalo, and Senator Joseph Addabbo, a Democrat from Queens, sponsored the bill, which passed both houses without any votes against it. In a memo of justification for the bill, the lawmakers said that in 2024, an estimated 14,200 New Yorkers were diagnosed with lung cancer, and that 3,100 men and 3,000 women died from the disease. Lung cancer remains our biggest cancer killer statewide and worldwide. Mary Reed, Chief of Cancer Screening and Survivorship at Roswell Park, said in a statement. She said the law will help patients overcome barriers that have kept vulnerable community members from accessing safe, effective, non-invasive, life-saving lung cancer screening. Michael Sailback, Assistant Vice President of Nationwide Advocacy for the American Lung Association, said that 14-year-old teenager growing up on Long Island, he learned that his vibrant grandfather at 62 had stage 4 lung cancer. In less than 10 months, he said, the cancer ravaged his grandfather's body and took his life. Lung cancer screening wasn't around for my grandfather, but it is now, he said. By eliminating this obstacle, this law will help ensure less people have stories like mine, that more people will become lung cancer survivors, and brings us closer to eliminating this disease. Screenings for lung cancer and annual CAT scans among those at risk for the disease can cut the lung cancer rate by up to 20%, the memo said. It says screenings of those at high risk have been low due to low awareness among patients and healthcare providers. Nationally, 16.3% of people at high risk for lung cancer have been screened, with New York State showing 19.3%. Lung cancer remains a leading cause of cancer deaths in New York State, Peoples-Stokes said in a statement, adding that providing coverage for follow-ups or diagnostic services will save lives. So,
Here's hoping.
here's hoping.
Alan Pergamon reports that Steve Cichon is bringing his distinctive voice back to radio after a 7-year absence. He's joining BTPM, let's see, that would be Buffalo Toronto Public Media, NPR, that's 88.7 FM, next week as the host of the afternoon program All Things Considered, and as a senior reporter. The veteran radio broadcaster and media historian made the announcement on social media Tuesday to a chorus of congratulations from friends, colleagues, and listeners. Cichon's wide-ranging local media career includes working at the Empire Sports Network, sports stations WNSA, WBEN AM, and WIVB TV, that's Channel 4. He was Van Miller's sports producer at Channel 4, produced Buffalo Bills football, ran the board for WBEN stars John Murphy and Howard Simon, and was the first producer of Chris the Bulldog Parker's WBEN show. Cichon also has worked for several other news organizations in town, including freelance work for the Buffalo News, over more than a 20-year radio and TV career. He last worked in radio 7 years ago as a part-time job as news director at WECK AM/FM, and 100, let's see, they give the call signals for those, and that lasted 7 months before he took a full-time job as communications director for Bishop Timon St. Jude High School in South Buffalo. He left Timon recently. Never say never, I'd say, when people would ask if I'd ever go back into radio. He wrote that on Facebook Tuesday, but I didn't believe that. I felt never in my bones. I hadn't left the world of radio journalism. It left me. But then it came back. He had at least 5 friends send him the job posting at BTPM. It didn't hurt that the new news boss at 88.7, his old friend Michael Mroziak, whom I've known for more than 3 decades. This is an amazing company. They've shown they appreciate what I can bring to the company and the people of Western New York and Southern Ontario over the airwaves, he said. It's still a bit unbelievable to be back in front of a microphone and to be working for a company where it's literally in the mission statement to foster collaboration, encourage new ideas, and provide culturally enriching content. I can't wait to get started. See you on the radio.
Have to say I like radio work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and the time now is 18 minutes past the hour, and we move on to sports. The Sabres, a dud in road opener. This is from Mike Harrington. The Buffalo Sabres in the NHL Situation Room won't be exchanging holiday cards in 2025, but let's not yet get another bizarre goalie interference decision that went against them overwhelm what ultimately happened here Wednesday night. In a 5-2 loss to the Philadelphia Flyers that opened the season's longest road trip, the Sabres' marquee players weren't good enough, but not even close. That should be your biggest takeaway. The Flyers burned Buffalo with 3 goals in a 59-second span of the first period, 2 on the power play, and that was that. Good teams fight through adversity, and the Sabres crumbled. It all really started when Tage Thompson fumbled away a puck in the defensive zone and then took a hooking penalty to short-circuit a power play that could have given the Sabres an early 2-0 lead. Alice Tooks failed clear on the subsequent penalty kill led to the Flyers' first goal, and Took had a couple of golden opportunities from the slot that he didn't bury later in the game. Thompson didn't handle Zach Benson's pass to the Buffalo's blue line to lead the Flyers' third goal. Captain Rasmus Dahlin got kicked out of the game for boarding Flyers winger Trevor Zegras from behind in the second period. Defenseman Matthias Samuelsson, a season-long stalwart, was -2 in the ice for 4 Philly goals. Josh Norris and Connor Timmins were also -2. The Sabres scored just once on a high season 6 power play chances, going 0 for 5 with the man advantage after Jason Zucker opened the scoring at 4 minutes, 8 seconds of the first period. They also gave up 2 power play goals in a game for the first time all season. That's a pretty heavy list of failures. The top guys failed the test, Coach Lindy Ruff said glumly. We weren't sharp. We talked about consistent play, but we failed the test on consistent play for sure. We have to do a better job on the bench in between periods, just kind of resetting ourselves, Thompson said. That all falls on me, just being better on the ice and in between periods trying to get our group just to reset. Ruff was frustrated that Tuch, with full control, did get the puck out of the zone just before Travis Konecny's wrist shot beat Colden Ellis to tie the game at 8 minutes 26 seconds of the first period. The Sabres had already taken 2 penalties, but Ruff challenged the play for goalie interference, thinking the plays were equivalent to challenges made by Calgary and Detroit that went against the Sabres in recent home games. This one, however, did not go Buffalo's way. The situation room ruled out there was no concrete evidence to wipe out a play called good goal on the ice. That put the Sabres on a penalty kill again for the delay of the game, and 18 seconds later the puck was in the net when Zegras' pass deflected in off Ryan McLeod's stick. And Bobby Brink took advantage of Thompson's charity to score 21 seconds later, and it was 3-1. We've had a couple of challenges I thought definitely wouldn't go, Ruff said. If you don't challenge, you're never going to know. We knew it was going to be a light challenge, but at the same time I saw goals taken away when there were a lot less than that. Ruff acknowledged that the combination of the plays that went against the Sabres at home and Ellis's reaction on this goal, where he indicated his blocker was impacted by Owen Trippett, led to the decision to challenge the play. That's part of my reaction too, Ruff said. If the goalie is that adamant about it and his reaction says that, then something definitely happened to affect him on the save. And it was a rough night on the PK. The Sabres entered the game second in the NHL in the penalty kill at 88.9% and had only allowed 3 PPGs on the road in 10 games this season. Then they gave up 2 in 38 seconds, cementing a drop in their road record to 2-7-2. Our penalty kill has been so good all year that we're not used to that, said defenseman Bowen Byram, who scored the Sabres' second goal. We just dug ourselves a hole and couldn't get much traction after that. After the first one, stuff happens. They're a good team, they're going to score goals, but then bang, bang, a couple more. It's frustrating. And looking ahead, the Sabres are happy that Dahlin wasn't suspended since Zegras continued in the game. But even with Dahlin on the ice, the Sabres' main men have to be better Friday night in Winnipeg. The Jets got smoked Monday in Buffalo, prompting a players-only meeting after the 5-1 defeat, and will be returning home bent on avenging a 1-3-1 road trip that ended Wednesday with 3-2 shootout loss in Montreal. You're never happy with a loss, obviously, but we got to just keep chugging in there, Byron said. Eventually, we've got to find a way to string some wins together. We win 2, lose 2, win 2, lose 2. If we want to stay in the race, we're going to have to try to string something better together. It's a big road trip with a lot of points up for grabs that we need, Thompson said. So this is one we've just got to shake off and get ready for the rest of the trip.
Turning to football, Joe Brady had an interesting response this week when asked what has led the Bills to become the best rushing offense in the NFL. I think number one is having Josh Allen as your quarterback, the team's offensive coordinator said. Crediting the guy whose job is to hand off the football for the success that follows might seem unusual, but Brady explained Allen's mere presence forces opposing defenses to game plan to stop him first. He is the league MVP after all, so that makes sense. A healthy fear of Allen is far from the only reason the Bills have been able to run the ball so successfully, though. Entering Week 14, the Bills lead the NFL with 155.7 rushing yards per game. They've run the ball 376 times, which ranks second in the league behind only the New York Giants with 389 rushing attempts. And they have a rush percentage of 49.5%, second in the league to only Seattle, which has run on 51.1% of its offensive plays. Buffalo's 21 rushing touchdowns rank second in the league behind only Indianapolis with 22. I give credit where credit's due, Bills head coach Sean McDermott said. Joe calling the plays at the right time, offensive line coach Aaron Cromer putting a run plan together, and then the players executing, being on the same page. That's critical. Individually, Bills running back James Cook ranks second in the league with 1,228 yards, trailing only the Colts' Jonathan Taylor, who has 1,282. The success of the Bills' running game, however, goes far beyond Cook's emergence as one of the premier players in the NFL at this position. Communication. Precise offensive execution is needed for a sound passing game, but that's also true in the running game, even if it's not thought of as much. That understanding of where everyone's supposed to be and the landmark of the running back on certain runs in particular, McDermott said. The Bills have enjoyed a good amount of continuity on offense, starting with Allen, but then going to Cook, the offensive line, and the two top tight ends being the same from last year. That promotes a better understanding of the overall scheme and how everyone has to understand the details and work within it. Once you ID the defense, it's everybody being on the same page and understanding the combinations, and we have a lot of the guys doing the same things together, and that continuity helps, Brady said. The Bills have the confidence to run the ball in all situations and a willingness to go back to the same play again and again until the defense proves it can stop it. That was on display last week against the Steelers when the Bills rushed a whopping 51 times for 249 yards, dominating time of possession 41 minutes and 59 seconds to 18 minutes and 1 second. Our guys have the confidence and understanding, all the receivers, tight ends, that it's a game we have to run the ball for 45 minutes, and we have success doing it. We're going to keep doing it, Brady said. I wish there was a magic answer to it, but I think the biggest thing is that the guys just having faith and trust in that, hey, this run might not work, but we'll figure it out and kind of go from there. After the loss, Steelers pass rusher T.J. Watt said he had rarely seen one team have so much success running the same player over and over again. That speaks to what Brady is referencing. It was pretty cool, that last game, calling the same two plays, duo to the right and weak zone to the left. Rookie tight end Jackson Haas said, "That's a testament to our toughness. We're a tough team."
Well, Dawkins, again, Bills nominee for Walter Payton Man of the Year. This is from Catherine Fitzgerald. Deion Dawkins is everywhere in the community, and on Thursday he found himself on another special list. Dawkins is a Buffalo Bills nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year, the highest honor the league can bestow. Every team nominates a player based off both their community service and their performance on the field. It's a beautiful honor, Dawkins said Thursday after practice. It's a beautiful honor. I can't believe it's been 4, right? Like, this is the 4th one, which is insane, but I'm so thankful. With his foundations, Deion's Dreams, Dawkins holds multiple community events each month during the season, and even some in Buffalo during the off-season. Dawkins is a 4-time nominee, and he says, of course, each of the consecutive denominations feels different. There's different faces, Dawkins said Thursday. There's new people you meet, and when you meet new people and you know their faces light up, you know it's never the same because every smile is different, and it's an addicting feeling to be present. Dawkins finds himself all around Western New York through his community endeavors. In November, he was awarded a Key to the City for all he does for Buffalo. When I first came to Buffalo, I was just a kid from New Jersey trying to make it in the NFL and trying to impact the people with my style of play. But the city immediately wrapped its arms around me and my family and showed us what real community means, Dawkins said at the time. This key represents something so much bigger than football to myself. It represents every kid in the city who dares to dream big, who works hard, and who believes that they can make a difference. Likewise, Dawkins finds his community events to be bigger than just him. He's made it clear that he does not give back for the recognition, but rather just to be a pillar in the community. On Thursday, Dawkins credited his teammates who come to his events, along with the Bills organization. He believes his nomination reflects the whole team. In return, teammates like cornerback Christian Benford called Dawkins' example motivational, as other players find their own ways to give back. Next for Dawkins is his now annual Snowman Express, where he caravans around the city to drop off gifts at different predetermined locations for families in need. It'll be just the latest way he finds himself present in the community. Earlier this season, Dawkins was awarded the Week 10 Community Most Valuable Player honors from the NFLPA. Through his Snow Day program, Dawkins treated 3 local classes who, in all expenses, paid field trips, including one to the Niagara Aquarium. That weekly nod means that he additionally will be a candidate for the NFLPA's Alan Page Community Award. The Walter Payton winner will be announced ahead of the Super Bowl on February 5th at the NFL Honors. The Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award is our league's most revered honor, celebrating players for their excellence both on and off the field, said NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell in a statement. These 32 men represent the best of the NFL and make the incredible contributions they make to their teams and communities every day to continue to keep Walter's legacy alive.
It boggles my mind that he's been nominated 3 previous times without winning that award, considering how much he does for the team and for this community.
I find it surprising how much the present Bills teams is doing in the community. They're out there doing some of the greatest stuff.
I've been seeing that since the early 80s when Adam Lingner headed a group of pediatric support patients we had at Roswell. Well, in Clevis Murray's prep talk, he mentions the just like that, the boys and girls basketball seasons are here. For the girls, St. Mary, in her second season at the helm of the Lancers, Coach Kelly McCauley, coming off last season with the team advancing the Monsignor Martin final. Her top player entering this season was going to be sophomore Mila Bissett. Well, we'll see. She's got a bunch of transfers there. At O'Hara, Kyla Hayes carried the load last year, leading the Lady Hawks to the Monsignor Martin title, but she's gone. She graduated. The nerve of that person. The 9-person roster has just one senior, so they've got a lot of growing to do there. It'll be in North Tonawanda. It'll be the last season for the Day sisters, as one of them, Annabelle, is a senior, so she'll be leaving for Buffalo, University of Buffalo next year. But we'll see how that goes this season. Fear the Bears. Frewsburg won the Class C state title last year. The team has advanced to at least the state semifinals each of the last 2 seasons. We'll see how that goes. Iroquois junior Kendall Hulsman averages 21 points, 16 rebounds as the number 2 option. See what the averages will be for that 6'8" center. Amherst is an intriguing team led by junior Taryn Ashley, senior Ada Radomski, and sophomore Lucy Giordano. They won the section title 2 years ago and then moved up to Class AA. Now they've got a different level of competition. A new start for Starpoint, winner of the last 2 season Class AA titles. Girls basketball is in a great place in Western New York, with players going on to compete at the highest level. So we'll see how they do. Meanwhile, in boys, Health Sciences won the section Class AA title and lost in the Far West Regional last year. Now their star is going to be back after a torn ACL. He missed last season. He's going to be. He has been a two-time All-Western New York first-team player, so we'll see how he helps them. Health Sciences is in Class AAA this season and returns 4 starters from last year. Charlie Croft. Last year, the team looked poised to make a deep run until a top player became sidelined. It's the grand finale season for Charlie this year. We'll see how that goes. In Monsignor Martin, there's not a must-see team entering this season. It's a restart year for the league. Many stalwarts like St. Joe's, Canisius, and Bishop Timon. A lot of unknowns in all 3 of those teams. And Orchard Park was 4.6 seconds away from becoming Section 6 Class AA1 champions last year. A Lockport player hit his second three-pointer of the game to force overtime, and the Lions won the game in the extra period. This year, Orchard Park returns all but one of its leading scorers from a year ago. They have the talent to compete for the section title, but if they can win it, we'll see. There's the reason they play the games.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and it's now 35 minutes past the hour, and we will move on to advice from our Eric Thomas, Asking Eric. And this one should be interesting. Gift exchange with family tradition grows tiresome. Dear Eric, how does one politely suggest to an in-law's relative that we don't need to exchange Christmas gifts? My significant other and I are at the stage in life where we really do not need more stuff, and would rather not deal with gifts that are generic at best and usually are regifted promptly via donation or gift economy communities. Perhaps I should suggest we only exchange consumable gifts, gifts of homemade baked goods or gourmet food items, but that seems rather controlling. This person has been nothing but kind to us in all our years of knowing them, but the awkward gift exchange is getting tiresome. I'm at a loss for how to deal with this, and I'm hoping you have a delightful solution to this first world problem that is signed Feeling Bah Humbug. And he answers, Dear Feeling, it can be deceptively easy to fall into these sorts of back and forths, and as you surely can attest, it is hard to delicately extract oneself. It can feel like rejecting a kind gesture, which could result in hurt feelings or worse, but if you suggest an alternative in place of the traditional exchange, that no becomes a yes, but. Even more importantly, it can be collaborative rather than controlling. Try making a suggestion to your in-law about a different way of celebrating and asking their opinion. Instead of the gift exchange this year, we'd like to bake you something. Is that something you'd be interested in? This way they're free to express their wants, and they might say, no thanks, but they're also being encouraged to think more expansively about this tradition. My family got there, and we exchanged food gifts. We're all cooks. And it works out very well. And the next letter, Dear Eric, I had a pancreas transplant in 2018. Due to this, along with celiac disease, I am on a very restricted and medically controlled diet and a very restricted medically controlled diet. There are very few things I can safely eat. However, I find that during the holidays, people attempt to make me special food during parties and get-togethers. I normally do not eat at other people's homes due to food preparations and sanitary concerns for my transplant, as well as not being able to verify a gluten-free environment when the food was made. How should I handle when people bring food to these gatherings or mention that they are making me something special? I don't want to be rude because I know it was done in love, but I also don't want to get sick or risk cross-contamination. How should I respond without hurting someone's feelings? And it's signed, Medically Compromised. And he answers, Dear Medically Compromised, you and your medical team are the experts on keeping yourself healthy and safe, so don't be afraid to be clear with friends about what you will and won't do. If bruised feelings occur, these friends may not be listening or believing you in the way they need to, so the onus is on them. When talking about your practices regarding food, frame them as universal rather than personal and non-negotiable. It was so thoughtful for you to make me something, but I can't eat anything outside of the home because there are too many variables. It's not about you. I would eat it if I could, and I appreciate the thought. In some cases, it can be helpful to let your host know in advance, perhaps when you're RSVPing. For the easier planning, I want to remind you that I don't eat outside of the home for medical reasons, so no need to prepare anything for me, but don't worry, I'll have a wonderful time regardless. That is a difficult situation.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. I'm very well aware of that in my family. And the last letter. Dear Eric, for years I've seen the same complaints about gift receivers who are unhappy about the gifts they receive. Ugly, wrong size, wrong style, not needed, not wanted, etc. Yet they cannot find a way out of this circle. For many years, I was also on the receiving end of gifts that were lovingly wrapped. I understand that for many people, the best part of Christmas is to send a beautifully wrapped and thoughtful gift. I've discovered that when people ask, "What do you want?" and I need a list for your family, or you or your family, it's coming from a place of love, not to terrorize you. However, I also know that I'm a lucky person who needs nothing and want for nothing. My response is to bequest a gift of sheets, towels, blankets, cookware, sheets, suitcases, etc., and I happily donate these items to a homeless or rehoming shelter. My relatives are none the wiser, and I'm able to send a heartfelt thank you note with how much I love these gifts, and it's signed Lucky to Need Nothing.
That's clever.
Yeah, I like that. Dear Lucky, this is a lovely solution. Others who are trying this tactic this year might also consider letting their loved ones know about the donation plan so the loved ones aren't looking for that special crock pot the next time they visit.
Well,
sometimes in my family we ask people to give to... Matter of fact, for years we had a collection in the family and we had a contest to see which charity would receive the money we put together.
oh,
That was an interesting Christmas thing.
I'll bet it was. Turning back to the front page, New York Times writers Cheryl Gay Stolberg and Christina Jewett report that throughout his 2-decade crusade against vaccines, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. viewed the federal government's vaccine safety data link as a kind of holy grail. With millions of confidential patient records, the database, he believed, held the potential to prove whether vaccines cause autism. After he became President Trump's health secretary, Kennedy demanded access to the data and assigned an old ally to examine it. But the scientists who managed it were standing in his way, worried that the data could be used improperly. Frustrated, Kennedy sent Hannah Anderson, one of his top advisors, to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta. She said, "I can't leave this town until you figure out how we're going to do this." She recalled Dr. Daniel Jernigan, who oversaw the database and has since left the CDC. In the end, Anderson got the data. Kennedy took over the Department of Health and Human Services in February after assuring skeptical senators weighing his confirmation that despite 20 years of hostility toward the country's long-established vaccine system, he would do nothing that makes it difficult or discourages people from taking vaccines. He sought to present a more unifying agenda, vowing to target ultra-processed foods and minimize toxic exposures as part of a broader mission to reverse the chronic disease epidemic and put the nation back on the road to good health. But an examination of Kennedy's tenure atop the nation's massive health agency shows how, in ways not previously known, he has methodically laid the groundwork to overhaul American vaccine policy, following a blueprint he laid out in books, speeches, and podcast appearances during his years as the leader of a movement attacking the system he now oversees. He has walled himself off from the government scientists and other civil servants he distrusts, while elevating longtime allies to help carry out his vaccine agenda. Kennedy has denied misleading senators about his intentions. He said in an interview that it should be no surprise that he brought in people he can trust. "I don't want to perpetuate a system that everybody knows is broken," he said. Kennedy's efforts were on full display Thursday and Friday when a panel of vaccine advisors, handpicked by the health secretary after he fired the old group, meets to reconsider the suite of vaccines given to young children. This account is based on interviews with more than 24 people, including current and former government scientists, activists, and allies of Kennedy. The Times also reviewed internal emails and interviewed the health secretary twice. When a child died of measles in Texas just 2 weeks after Kennedy took over. Longtime CDC infectious disease experts sought unsuccessfully to brief him. Instead, Kennedy consulted a doctor he met through the leader of the nonprofit he founded, promoting his alternative treatments while downplaying vaccination. And he has enlisted a hero of his movement, William Thompson, a career CDC scientist who questioned the validity of a 2004 study that concluded the measles vaccine was not linked to autism. Kennedy said in a recent interview that he personally directed the CDC to abandon its official position that vaccines do not cause autism. Within the past week, he has installed critics of COVID vaccines as the number 2 official at CDC and as chair of the panel of vaccine advisors. But he rejected the idea that vaccines have been his main focus. He noted that he has prodded food manufacturers to abandon artificial dyes and pushed infant formula manufacturers to use less sugar. He leaned on the insurance industry to streamline its prior authorization process for medical procedures. He persuaded Trump to launch a sweeping crackdown on televised drug advisements and worked with the president on plans to lower drug prices. What I do with vaccines is a very, very small part of my job, Kennedy said in the interview. Yet his vaccine agenda is having an impact. Coronavirus vaccines became harder to get after he announced new guidelines on social media in May, sidestepping the usual scientific review process. The vaccines are now approved for people older than 65 and those with underlying medical conditions. Kennedy canceled a nearly $600 million contract with Moderna, the COVID-19 vaccine manufacturer that was working on an mRNA vaccine against bird flu for humans. He also cut nearly $500 million in grants and contracts to develop mRNA vaccines. Kennedy said the technology is flawed. His critics say the cuts will diminish a promising new method to deliver vaccines and cancer treatment. The pace of change on vaccines has stunned experts. We had an idea about what might happen, Jernigan said, but we really had no idea how quickly he was going to move. The scion of a Democratic dynasty, Kennedy spent the first part of his career as an environmental lawyer and worked to eliminate mercury from waterways. But in the early 2000s, a small group of mothers of children with autism persuaded him to look into thimerosal, a mercury-based preservative in vaccines. A mercury-based preservative in vaccines. As chair of Children's Health Defense, the nonprofit he ran until he launched a bid for the presidency in 2023, Kennedy tried to build a case that vaccines were more hazardous and infectious diseases less dangerous than most people believed. Measles outbreaks, Kennedy wrote in 2021 in an ebook published by his nonprofit, have been fabricated to create fear that in turn forces government officials to do something. 2 weeks after after senators voted narrowly to confirm him, Kennedy had his own measles outbreak to confront. The disease was spreading in the tiny West Texas city of Seminole, home to a close-knit community of Mennonite Christians who shunned vaccination. An unvaccinated 6-year-old girl became the first person on American soil in a decade to die from measles. 2 top officials, Dr. Barbara Horry, the CDC's chief medical officer, and Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis, the agency's top infectious disease expert, each said that they had appealed to Kennedy's staff to allow them to brief the secretary on the crisis. But the briefing, they said, never happened. The CDC scientists did not know at the time that Brian Hooker, a biochemical engineer and chief scientific officer of Kennedy's old nonprofit, was already on the ground talking to Dr. Ben Edwards, who has a wellness practice in Lubbock. Edwards told Hooker he had been having success treating measles patients with a steroid inhaler and antibiotics, a combination he had used against COVID-19. He also talked about vitamin A, which can prevent complications in hospitalized measles patients, and mentioned cod liver oil, rich in the vitamin. Kennedy publicly promoted Edwards' recommendations. He also sent CDC epidemiologists who typically respond to outbreaks to the area and ordered the shipment of 2,000 measles vaccines, even as he insisted in a Fox News opinion piece that the decision to vaccinate is a personal one. In Seminole, a local wellness emporium quickly stocked bottles of cod liver oil and kid-friendly flavors. Edwards opened a pop-up clinic next door, treating patients even after he was infected with measles himself. Doing so, he said later, because patients were already infected and were not going to seek care anywhere else. State health authorities said the first death was from measles, and a second death in a school-aged child was from measles pulmonary failure. Kennedy, reflecting the assessment of a close ally, reached a different conclusion. One of the little girls had strep, Kennedy told talk show host Dr. Phil McGraw. She had bacteria in her blood. That's really what killed her. When asked during a Senate hearing in September to name scientists inside the CDC who have briefed him, the secretary mentioned only one, Thompson, the CDC whistleblower. Kennedy also hired Mark Blaxill, a business person and longtime advocate for parents of children with autism, who has argued that the CDC is committing fraud by concealing a connection between vaccines and autism. He was assigned to work with the new committee of vaccine advisors that will discuss this week whether the schedule of vaccines given to infants and toddlers should be revised. They've never looked at the whole schedule, which is the thing that is most likely the biggest culprit, Blaxill said last year in an interview with Children's Health Defense. He did not respond to requests for comment. When the new panel convened for the first time in June, the agenda included thimerosal. It had been removed from nearly all childhood vaccines, but not flu vaccines, in the early 2000s, not for safety reasons, officials said at the time, but to assuage parent concerns. In preparation for the session, Daskalakis, the CDC's top infectious disease expert, said he asked agency scientists to assess the benefits and risks of thimerosal. Their 17-page report showed that while thimerosal in vaccines given to pregnant women had fallen steadily, autism rates were still rising, suggesting that the preservative was not to blame. The CDC posted the report on its website the night before the meeting, but during the meeting it suddenly disappeared. An explanation came from Dr. Robert Malone, a close ally of Kennedy's and staunch opponent of COVID vaccines, who now sits on the committee. My understanding, Malone said, is that article was not authorized by the Office of the Secretary and has been removed. Kennedy said in the interview that he was not aware of the document. In the end, the vaccine advisors called for pregnant women and children to avoid flu vaccines with thimerosal, a recommendation that mainstream scientists said was not rooted in evidence. It was a victory for the secretary and his supporters. Kennedy remains convinced that vaccines, along with ultra-processed foods and environmental toxins, have fueled an increase in asthma, allergies, autism, and other neurodevelopmental disorders that have been on the rise in recent decades when the number of childhood immunizations rose. But there's no scientific proof, but Kennedy is on a mission to change that. Vaccines, he said, must be a potential culprit because they became ubiquitous along that timeline. Hopefully some real research will be done.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. From Albany, Hochul is still weighing aid in dying measure. This is from Robert Gavin, the Albany Bureau Chief. From Niagara Falls Boulevard in Tonawanda to the Executive Mansion in Albany, protesters stood at candlelight vigils on Wednesday night, urging Governor Kathy Hochul to veto a bill that would allow the terminally ill to end their own lives with the self-administered drugs. Supporters of the medical aid in dying legislation have staged their own vigils, imploring the governor to sign the bill into law that they contend will provide terminally ill New Yorkers the compassion, dignity, and peace of mind after the end of their lives. In less than a month, Hochul will deliver them an answer, and it may be slightly different from the ones that either side initially expected. Hochul, who has until the end of the year to sign or veto the bill, has offered amendments. According to the bill published in the Gothamist on Wednesday, the report said Hochul wants to create a 7-day waiting period for patients who seek the end-of-life medication, to require the patients to undergo psychiatric mental evaluation and delay its start date for 1 year. Under the bill that passed both the Assembly and Senate, the measure would have gone into effect immediately. Asked about the reported amendments under consideration, Hochul spokesperson Cara Kumaletti said the governor continues to review the legislation. Mandy Zucker, the executive director of End of Life Choices in New York, which supports the bill, expressed no opposition to the potential changes. A governor offering amendments to a bill of this magnitude is not unusual, and we are happy to work with her office and legislative leaders to compromise wherever possible to ensure that medical aid in dying becomes a law in New York State, Zucker said in a statement. Hopefully, terminally ill New Yorkers can enter 2026 knowing that, if needed, they'll have the ability to end their lives in a manner and at a time of their choosing instead of needlessly suffering from a disease or illness out of their control. Opponents of the bill, which include the New York State Catholic Conference as well as the New York State Association on Independent Living, with the NYAIL, have called it assisted suicide, a label not supported by backers of the legislation. Nancy Nielsen, Senior Associate Dean for Health Policy at the University at Buffalo and a former president of the American Medical Association, said physicians have been opposed to hastening death for centuries. Nielsen noted that she is both a Catholic and a physician with 4 decades of experience, and she said she's marveled at the care and existential healing terminal patients receive in hospice care. Medical ethics codes caution that hastening death is incompatible with the role of physicians, said Nielsen, who attended the vigil against the bill in Tonawanda. While I know there are good, caring people on both sides of this issue, I believe we must do everything possible to relieve suffering, and we should strongly support hospice and palliative care. But I do not think we should legalize anything that would accelerate natural death.
Yeah, and we're out of time.
So,
Seems like we're out of time for today. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, December 5th, 2025. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. JJ's got a comic for us to look at today. Family Circus.
Family Circus. And we have Thelma sitting on a couch with a friend of hers, and I think there's little Jeffy standing up on the back of the couch. Parents would know this one. And he's saying to the guest, "Did you know your hair was changing colors down near your head?"
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Well, if you need any further information about what we've been reading today, call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
JJ Patek
and Don Williams.
Are you facing challenges with vision loss and need help with your smartphone, sending emails, navigating the internet, and staying connected with your family? VIA, Visually Impaired Advancement, is offering free classes for seniors weekly at multiple locations with free assistance for your smartphone, email, and internet skills. There's a new session every week, and it rotates between the South Towns and the North Towns. It's at your local Erie County libraries and at 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. For more information, call Elhana Porter at 716-888-4632. Again, that's 716-888-4632. If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Coming up next to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service is Adirondack Life. Following that, at noon is today's USA Today. Stay with us for these readings and more. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,